My engagement.
Yes. Good afternoon. On behalf of my country, Costa Rica, as a reflection of the commitment of my country to this topic under discussion today, namely the need to advance a comprehensive and rights-based approach to menstrual health, hygiene, and menstrual determinants in order to achieve, as the title of this event suggests, menstrual justice for all women and girls. I want to thank in the first place the co-sponsors of this event, the World Health Organization, ILO, the Costa Rican NGO Women Connecting, who's with us today, and the Sikh Human Rights Group for their work and support to make this event a reality. Today's event, dear colleagues, is a call for an approach that goes beyond the conceived concept of menstrual hygiene management and to adopt a framework that is based on rights, on justice, and intersectionality, which considers the social, environmental, and economic determinants of menstrual health. Indeed, menstrual cycles and menstruation are normal physiological processes. However, the experience of menstruation is undeniably influenced by social, economic, and structural factors and associated inequities. These factors can determine, for example, the capacity of a woman or a girl to access information about their bodies, about menstrual products that are offered to them, or health services that are available to women and girls. In fact, it is reported that 86% of persons by some spheres, such as the American Medical Association, but to go beyond the economic structures and look into the social determinants of menstrual health and justice. Costa Rica, of course, has a national experience to share, and we are very happy that the organization, the NGO Women Connected, will present to you some of this experience. But allow me a few minutes to describe that last year a bill was adopted by Congress in Costa Rica to renew and reaffirm the commitment of the country to comprehensive health of all women and girls as a fundamental part of our public policies, and the access and the right to live their natural biological process without being object of discrimination nor inequities. So through this law and the executive decree published in 2022, products of menstrual hygiene and health were included in what we call in Costa Rica the basic basket, which is in economic terms basically a composition of all fundamental goods and food that is required and that is exempt of or protected from specific taxes added associated to those. And so contrary to what would happen before, where only regular sanitary towels would be included in the basic basket, nowadays, and thanks to this progress in law and in policy, we have managed to include all products related to menstrual hygiene and management through a reduced tariff of 1% of the tax on goods in the country. And this reduced tariff entered into force on February 1st last year. Of course, this is a process that does not finish here, because when we will have experts to discuss this, when we discuss menstrual justice, it is not only about the price and the access to these prices, but it's about stigma. It is about some practices, cultural practices that exist in different parts of the world that discriminate women and girls that are or persons that are menstruating. And so the scope of this fight for menstrual justice goes merely the reduction of cost. I would also like to point out in this regard, and from the national experience, that it is crucial to count on the participation of civil society in this regard and the private sector. What Costa Rica has achieved so far is the beginning of a long-term process that would not be achieved without the full participation of civil society in raising awareness, in guiding state policies through the experience of grassroots women and girls, not men like me presenting today, and for sure with the participation of the private sector. It is critical that the private sector is involved in these national dialogues and policy actions for the benefit of all women and girls. So the fight continues, but definitely what I can say to end is that from our perspective, there is no gender equality without menstrual justice. We want to put this on the very top of the agenda, and we believe there is a lot of space to work with all countries, but particularly with countries from the global south, where we see more exacerbated not only the lack of access to this type of policies, but also the issues around culture, stigma, and discrimination. So this is just the start, and I'll be very, very pleased to hear from the experts here in this panel. Thankfully, all women, unlike me. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel. And yes, to echo kind of Daniel's words there, thank you so much for everyone who has joined this side event, both in person and virtually. So I'm Bethan Walters. I'm going to moderate this event, and I am a representative for the Sikh Human Rights Group. So we're an NGO that has gained UN ECOSOC status in 2015. And we focus on promoting rights-based approaches and pluralistic language in action and legislation, aiming for inclusivity across the globe. So within my role, we kind of lead on the gender and diversity projects. And for the past 2 and a bit years, we've been advocating for reform in how we discuss menstruation, aiming to ensure it's prioritized in efforts to address gender discrimination and menstrual injustice. So we've been vocal about this topic, along with others, bringing it up in issues around menstrual injustice at COP26, COP27, COP28. In COP27, it was highlighted that women and girls are 14 times more likely to die due to climate change, emphasizing the urgent need for them to be included in the decision-making process. However, the question we asked is, well, how do you expect women and girls to participate fully if they can't attend school or work due to lack of access to products or education? So as an NGO, as of tomorrow, we would have held 3 parallel events at CSW. And each time we've explored the barriers of sustainable menstruation, the selective innovation of menstruation, and kind of as is today and tomorrow, the period poverty beyond the products. So this is our first time holding a side event here at CSW. So we really want to thank the WHO and Costa Rican mission and kind of the collective panelists who have joined us today. Our goal is to shed light on the broader implications of period poverty. It begins with our language. Even when we use the term period, we only refer to the bleed during the menstrual cycle, and even then it's a code word. We kind of overlook the entire cycle. And what we aim to show is that period poverty extends beyond the products and the access to the products. It indicates that there's a lack of education, a lack of research into menstruation, menstrual disorders, access to environmentally friendly products that are good for the person and for the planet, sustainable legislation, and support for the physical and mental health challenges associated with menstruation. So we're hoping from this event that we will be able to expand and kind of connect with you all and work in some form of network to try to kind of really pick together as missions, as NGOs and experts to share and push legislation forwards through the UN. So without further ado, I will introduce you to our panelists. So to my left, we have Marcela Zamora. She is the CEO of Nosotras Women Connecting. My Spanish is not strong. So this is an organization from Costa Rica dedicated to advocating for menstrual justice and equity. They played a pivotal role in launching the national advocacy campaign, leading in the unanimous approval of the menstrual justice bill, as mentioned earlier, the 22.421 in Costa Rica. This landmark legislation eliminates taxes on menstrual products, provides menstrual education, and ensures free access to period products in various institutions. The organization is positioned as a leader in recognizing menstrual justice as a human right and continues to advocate globally for menstrual equality and education. To my right, over there, we have Dr. Manjula Noorlasim, and she works for the Department of Sexual and Reproductive Health and Research for the WHO or the World Health Organization in Geneva, Switzerland. She is an honorary professor in the Faculty of Medicine at the Imperial College London. Manjula leads the WHO's work on self-care interventions for health and well-being, coordinating and promoting innovation, people-centered approaches in global policy, communication and research to advance sexual and reproductive health and rights of underserved, marginalized populations. Manjula has also identified and managed strategic planning and oversight of prevention technologies for sexual and reproductive health and rights, approaches to increase quality health coverage for all their diversity, and build bridges between stakeholders, decision makers, and policy actors to positively influence public policy and practice. And to my left, we have Kristen Katsutsu. So she is the co-founder of Safi Paz. Kristen is passionate about sustainable manufacturing and women's issues. So during her undergrad, she worked on various projects, including plastic bottle recycling and natural product development with MIT D Lab in Brazil and in India. Safi has gained global recognition from the Times Magazine, Fast Company, and others for its social impact and sustainability. Kristen has spoken at the New York Times Climate Hub at COP26, the World Economic Forum, and she's also an MIT D Lab Scale Up Fellow, it's a mouthful, an Asian Society Young Leader, TEDx speaker, Forbes 30 Under 40 Asian Fellow, and Cartier Women's Initiative finalist, and recognized by the Indian Department of MSME. Very impressive panel so far. And then to my right, we have Dr. Hashmita Ushmaid. And she is an inspiring surgeon currently interning in Victoria Hospital in India. She serves as a youth policy champion for SRHR with the Youth Cable collaboration at UNICEF India, and is certified public health and disaster medicine trainer. Beyond her surgical and research pursuits, she advocates for mental health, sexual reproductive health rights, climate change, and human rights. Dedicated to raising awareness, she actively participates in conferences such as the Groundwater as a Key to Sustainable Development Goals, the UN Water Conference, the GPDDR, the GFA, the WHO Zero Regional Committee meetings, COP28, and today CSW 68. We also do have Senator Gloria. She unfortunately couldn't make it, so she's Senator from Kenya. I will let her introduce herself as she has made a video submission, so hopefully you'll be able to hear her now.
Greetings from Nairobi, Kenya. I am Gloria Oroba, a specially elected senator in the Senate of Kenya, and you all have probably heard about me or seen me online. Famously for the period stain. In 2023, February 14th, on Valentine's Day, I happened to have an accidental stain of my period as I was going to the chambers, and it caused quite a stir internationally. And this actually sort of pushed me to pick up the menstrual hygiene ambassador internationally. My clarion call to the United Nations really is when we are focusing on the sustainable development goals, particularly goal number 1, which is to end poverty in all forms everywhere, we should remember that this shadow pandemic of period poverty is pegged on the basis that it is poverty that is denying women and girls the access to menstrual hygiene products. What do I expect to see? What will I be excited to be part of? Well, I think that the beneficiaries of blood money, because that's what I call it blood money, you know, the industry of menstrual hygiene products, that is an industry that generates billions of profit. I think that the beneficiaries of blood money should be those who are bleeding. It should be the women and the girls. And how do we do this? Well, we have to push entrepreneurs to get into that space of manufacturing, to get into that space of running businesses that are around menstrual hygiene products, of running businesses that are around, even when you talk about disposal, safe disposal of these products. And I am so excited about a project that I am working on, which is literally to put up a manufacturing plant in Kenya, where we're going to employ thousands and bring down the cost of sanitary towels by ensuring that we are not producing for profit, but producing to reach out to the vulnerable girls, but of course in a sustainable way. So I would like to see more women in that space, more girls who are intentionally being subjected to what it means to have social enterprises that are solving problems around period poverty. That would be my clarion call to the United Nations. Thank you.
Wonderful, yeah. She does deserve a round of applause. I'll make sure she, if she's not watching live, I'll make sure we say that we did give her a round of applause. So yeah, we will now kind of pass over to some questions to the panelists, and then we'll open up to some Q&A, because we do really want to try and make this, yeah, a little bit more interactive than some other events as well. So Marcella, over to yourself if you are ready.
Thank you. Is it? Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for being here today. I subscribe to all the protocol greetings of this wonderful panel that we have here. And first of all, I want to say that for Nosotras Women Connecting to be here marks an important goal in our organization and our dream for a fair world for all women. We are dedicated to accelerate the transition to a world of equity for girls and women from all places. Today, I'm going to share with you the story of change in Costa Rica and how we want to be part of the global movement of menstrual justice in the world. So January the 2nd, last year, 2023, in partnership with media and the marketing agency Garnier Group, Nosotras Women Connecting launches the mass campaign Cambiemos la Regla, which in English means not a luxury, period. And you can see in the screens some pictures of everything we have done. So please be aware of the screens. This campaign was aimed to pass the bill Menstruation and Justice in Costa Rica. This bill was previously co-created between Parliament member Carolina Hidalgo next to diverse organizations in 2021. As my colleagues have said, the bill proposed elimination of all taxes in all menstrual products, provide menstrual products in public educational institutions and through our social security system for students, women in jail, immigrants, girls, and women in transit, collect data and statistics on menstrual poverty. And of course, one of the most important things, give educational and informational campaigns to educate and create awareness on menstruation. We took over all the national media, billboards, advertising, and took one of the most emblematic sculptures that you can see over there in our capital, San Jose, La Chola. And this piece of art, according to its creator, it represents the Costa Rican woman, which we believe was the perfect landscape to launch a very groundbreaking campaign. We received the support of local government, artists, influencers, and diverse stakeholders that were joining little by little our campaign. Making a huge impact in the social conversation, we approached each parliament member to be part of the campaign, and we called them to compromise in public that they would support the bill until it would become finally a law. By the first quarter of the campaign, we got the support of more than 60% of the parliament members from Costa Rica. Once we were able to secure the project in the legislative order, we decided to expand the campaign and include 3 basic components. Over there, we can see different parliament members joining the campaign in a public way. And this was a key thing in order to make sure that we will have the support from beginning to end. So the 3 basic components that we added to the campaign as the campaign was going through was educational programs for high school students and teachers on menstrual health. Next to UNFPA, we created workshops on menstrual health, the guide on menstrual justice. Next slide, please. The guide on menstrual justice. Here we can see different girls and boys talking about menstruation, working around menstruation, and of course it was mixed groups because we believe menstrual justice is not only a women's issue but all the population issue. Also, we created the guide on menstrual justice with our main character Valentia, and this guide is for public and private schools in Costa Rica. We made the pilot program last year in order to launch this year in a more serious and comprehensive way. Also, we include the youth voices and artistic expression with an overwhelming participation of more than 15,000 students. Teenagers intervening artistically, shares, as you can see there, using menstrual justice as a theme, symbolizing all the girls that miss classes because they don't have access to menstrual products. We created a dialogue using arts and culture. Next, please. And we create a theater intervention in the National Theater in the most popular play in that moment that was Mujercitas, or the classic that you all know as Little Women. Also, we created an exposition in the main lounge of the Parliament to openly talk to Parliament members to make the bill a reality. So you can see there different Parliament members joining the campaign, and in the share that you see in the middle, they had like the signatures of every Parliament member just compromising with the campaign and of course supporting the bill. Although this sounds like a great success story, which it is, don't get me wrong, we had some kind of difficult moments and it was not easy. We have similar discussions as the one that we have in different parts of the world, and we got pushbacks from the more conservative wings. The most difficult challenge was agreeing on language. This was one of the main conflicts and took us through a path of negotiation, listening, dialogue, and creating common grounds for all parties, including the ones we disagree more with. One of the most beautiful surprises was to see the leadership role of civil society, and especially young women who took from their own inspiration different actions, and I'm going to tell you just a little bit of them. They made small collecting campaigns in high schools. Police corps also collect different products, and private companies. Some of them were related to us and some of them were not. They were just inspired for the movement and they took the initiative. Some of them gave us the product, and we make sure to provide this product to teenager moms and women in immigration transit. In Costa Rica, we have more than 4,000 people going through our borders every day. So you can imagine the crisis that some girls and women are living with their periods in that period in all their transit, coming usually from the Darien, coming to the United States of America. 10 months after this very overwhelming campaign, the bill passed successfully with 100% of the votes of the parliament members present in that day, which we never imagined, not even in our most crazy dreams and not even our best days that we had in the campaign. We understand this law is a model in Central America since it is the first of its kind, and this is why we decided to join the global movement last year. We're working next to our official commission in Costa Rica mission at the UN at Geneva and here at New York to articulate the next steps next to other countries to contribute to the global movement that is happening throughout the world from grassroots organizations and diverse stakeholders. This is why we have created a multidimensional strategy to fight menstrual poverty based in our experience and research. Today, we make the call to all the countries to join the movement and use everything we have learned to create our own solutions to make direct impact in the lives of girls and women. Over in the screen, you can see our approach to fight menstrual poverty that we have created through our experience research while we do all this campaign. Of course, we believe data and research has to be at the core of every strategy. We believe that we have to put tax-free on every menstrual product, of course, give access to education and information, not only to girls and women and general population, but also to educators and health personnel. We have to give free access to menstrual products to strategic populations, for example, students, refugees, immigrants, or low-income families. Also, we believe we have to create a good space for public policy and public and private partnerships to tackle the structural causes of menstrual poverty and create actions to promote entrepreneurship and innovation that can lead us to more sustainable ways to manage menstruation. And finally, and very important, we need to work in access to water, sanitation, and infrastructure, especially with three crises that we're living right now: the climate crisis, the immigration crisis, and the armed conflicts such as Gaza, and the situations that women in war conflicts are living right now with their periods. I think I can announce this today, and I especially talking about the importance of working with private sector. In 2 days from now, we're launching the biggest collecting campaign of menstrual products ever made in our country, Costa Rica. Next to Walmart, Kimberly-Clark, Coca-Cola, UNFPA, Red Cross, Ministry of Culture and Youth, and other stakeholders, we have the goal to collect 1 million pads for girls and women in Costa Rica living in vulnerable situations. Today, here at this event, we're calling organizations and countries to work together for menstrual justice, create clear actions with real impact, enjoying our plans to make sure that no girl or woman is left behind because of their menstruation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So I will next pass to Manjula to kind of comment on behalf of the WHO.
And thank you for that. Is this okay?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Thank you for those inspiring words before, and the film as well from the senator. That was great. So just a couple of words from WHS. I work. My name is Manjula Narasimhan. I work in the Department of Sexual and Reproductive Health at the World Health Organization in Geneva, and we are a very unique department in that we cover not only all the aspects of sexual and reproductive health of women and girls in all their diversity, but also with regards to the special UN program on research in reproductive health, HRP. So a lot of the research and the data that you that was Maricela just mentioned is really something that's very important to us. So the statements and the guidance and the support that we provide to member states is really based on that evidence. So Chairperson, Excellencies and distinguished delegates, I wanted to start with a few words about the historical aspects of menstrual health. So women and girls self-manage this physiological process, as was mentioned, of menstruation and menstrual effluent for much of their lives, from menarche to menopause. And we're all familiar with many of the products that are available today. But women have been ingeniously using what has been available to them for a very long time. So women use tampons made of bound wool in ancient Rome, of paper secured with bandages in ancient Japan, papyrus in ancient Egypt, vegetable fibers in Indonesia, rolls of grass in equatorial Africa. The point here is that not only is it important across the life course of women, and that is something that women have to live with, throughout their lives, but also this is something that has been there from the dawn of time. And a lot of the problems that we see associated with menstrual health and menstruation have also been there for a very long time. It did not suddenly appear. So these are inherent to many societies and many of the problems. So I think some of the issues that we need to tackle are things that we carry with us, and a lot of the societies carry with us. And the research and policy attention in the past 2 decades has necessarily been directed to tackling the need for increase in access, affordability, availability of period products. And in this context, I just wanted to say a few words also on the impact of single-use period products on the environment. So I wanted to start with the environment in this sort of one world approach. And a person is expected to use about 10,000 menstrual products in their lifetime. And since their initial commercial introduction, tampons and pads have constantly evolved as new synthetic materials were invented, and they may now include almost 90% of plastic. And the lack of consensus on how to classify, to discard, dispose of single-use menstrual products continues to hamper the efforts to tackle their environmental impacts. In May 2023, the 76th World Health Assembly adopted a resolution to end plastic pollution, recognizing that unsound management of waste and the production, consumption, and the disposal of plastic products can cause significant adverse effects to human health and the environment. The global market, and this was already mentioned, for manufacturing menstrual hygiene products is worth $22 billion in 2022. In the EU alone, 49 billion single-use products are consumed annually. In 2018, 15.9 billion boxes of tampons were sold globally. So in line with these approaches that need to meet the needs of women and girls, it also needs to be sustainable. And the products such as reusable pads, menstrual underwear, menstrual discs, menstrual cups, biodegradable single-use pads and tampons are examples of the alternative to single-use pads that can reduce the amount of plastic to the environment and will benefit the user. And I really look forward to hearing from Kristen on the a concrete example of how this can change the way we're looking at sustainable approaches to the period poverty. And this leads to my second point on addressing inequity in access to menstrual products. So in this modern era of mass consumption of products, and the purchasing decisions are often influenced by issues such as availability, comfort, duration of wear, cost, ease of use, reliability, peer influence. And however, the choice and the access to the products that meet the needs of women and girls is a luxury for so many women. So across the world, around 800 million women menstruate each day, and an estimated 500 million lack access to menstrual products and appropriate facilities for menstrual hygiene management, leading to, as already was mentioned, educational and socioeconomic consequences, which limit the opportunities of women and girls in their capacities to achieve their potential, exercise agency, and live dignified lives. And this is particularly relevant for those women who are often marginalized, underserved, and this includes homeless women, includes indigenous women, includes women living with HIV, transgender women. I think that the actions and the policies, the programs that need to be put in place, as was mentioned for low and middle income countries, but particularly for those populations, the refugees, the migrants, those affected by climate change and conflicts, are particularly relevant, that we focus on to address their needs. And furthermore, for many women and girls, menstruation is associated with stigma. For instance, stigma processes of othering or devaluation of the woman. Menstrual stigma includes social construct of menstrual blood as dirty, as impure, and distinct from other body fluids, in turn implying that women and girls themselves are dirty and impure in some cultures. This includes where I come from in India, where some of the words to describe menstruation actually means dirty or means stay away and keep a distance. So it's really inculcated within our social constructs. So this menstrual stigma can be internalized in some contexts, and it can also result for the women themselves discomfort and disgust handling bloodied products, and the anticipated stigma producing concerns regarding the visibility of washing or publicly drying reusable period products. Menstrual hygiene management is also about sexual health, well-being, and rights, including to bodily autonomy. So the social cultural context in relation to sexual health and well-being can contribute to internally and externally enforced behavioral expectations, which in turn shape the confidence, for instance, to manage menstruation or to participate in other activities during menstruation, and to contribute to negative emotional responses, such as the shame, the bother, the disgust, the feelings of uncleanliness, worry, psychosocial distress, with the impacts including reduced participation in social, employment, physical, religious, and/or educational activities, and the worsened psychological and physical health for many women and girls. The menstruation experience of women and girls should not be compounded by the loss of their rights to their safety, to their bodily autonomy, to their dignity, and to justice. So Chairperson, Excellencies, and distinguished delegates, WHO is now developing the 14th Global Program of Work to begin in 2026. It will accelerate WHO's support to member states to advance a comprehensive agenda on women and health. This includes sexual and reproductive health and rights, and addressing all women's health needs across their life course. The WHO Department of Sexual and Reproductive Health will be expanding its global normative guidance on self-care interventions. So these are actions and products that people can use with or without the support of a health worker, and includes, of course, menstrual products. In expanding the scope of this guidance, menstrual health and hygiene and period poverty will be included in the next version for 2025. This will be a step towards supporting national policies and programs to advance better menstrual health and hygiene. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And yeah, what an exciting announcement too. And exactly that, I think that there is, yeah, as you've kind of mentioned, this commodification and chokehold by certain organizations where, again, the kind of intent of that product is to it lasts, or we use it for 8 years. Sorry, we use it for 8 hours, but it will last way beyond our lifetime and 500 years. Some of them. So I'm going to pass over to Kristen now, who, again, I will kind of let you kind of respond as well from that, but also if you could share the kind of inspiration behind finding India's first biodegradable menstrual product and the journey that has kind of led to this development, and what specific challenges that you encountered, particularly in the context of addressing period poverty in rural India. Thank you.
Can you?
Yeah,
you can.
it's
Okay,
working.
cool. Thank you so much for having us here today, and it's been really great to hear everyone's perspective so far. I think this is really a great chance for us all to kind of work together. So I'm one of the co-founders of Sati, and we started Sati in order to address lack of access to menstrual products. Particularly, we're focusing in India. And that's because at the time when we started, the statistics were that about only 18% of women had access to menstrual products. Now it's about 36%. And even with 36% of women having access, that's about 21 million pads being used each year. And so, as Manjula also already mentioned, that causes also a plastic pollution problem. So when we started Sati, we actually were looking at lack of access alone, and then we were thinking about the solution that we wanted to work on. And what we realized is that, if we're going to be trying to address lack of access, where are all of the women and girls that don't have access? Mainly they're in rural areas. Also, there are, of course, women and girls in cities as well, or in the outskirts of cities, but primarily it would be in rural areas, which is where they don't have access to waste infrastructure. And if there's no access to waste infrastructure, and you're going to bring in all these single-use plastic items to rural areas, then you're causing more pollution, which was already a problem without having this addition of pads being used every month. And so we thought that it didn't make sense to try to solve one issue and create another. And though that would have set us back some time in terms of providing a proper solution, we thought that it was worth the time to try to figure out something that might be a little more holistic, as a solution that could last longer and potentially, hopefully, address both of these issues. And so then we had already been working with banana fiber as our main absorbent material. And so we thought, well, how can we replace all of the other materials in the pad to make it completely biodegradable and compostable? So that was kind of our goal. And it did take us some time to figure it out, but eventually we came up with the solution, and then started to try to produce it, and kind of went through all of the steps to get to where we are today in terms of manufacturing and all of that. But I think the other thing that we were looking at is not just about the manufacturing process, which is maybe one of our strong points as engineers, but also thinking about the distribution and all of the other elements that have been mentioned today, which include education. We had to figure out not only, there's logistics of getting the product to women and girls who don't have access, but not just how to physically get the products to them, but also how to make sure that if we're bringing these products to these communities, then when we're distributing the products, is there the proper understanding of not only periods, but also how to use this product, if and in case maybe some women and girls that hadn't used them before, how to dispose of it, why it might be important to use this product versus some other maybe locally available things that might cause more infections, etc. And so we had to go into kind of the whole breadth and depth of the scenario and see how can we provide a more holistic solution from top to bottom. And so we've been working on that for a while, and it's taken a lot of time because it's not just trying to build a, kind of a pad company or something like that, but also thinking of the different ways that we can disseminate this solution. And on top of it, how we're making the product, we also wanted that to be as inclusive of the community as well. So we're utilizing an agri-waste material, which is the banana fiber, which means we can support additional income to farmers. And we have an all-women staff in our manufacturing unit. And then we are also, ensuring that we kind of have a Robin Hood model, as my co-founder likes to say, which is basically we sell in urban areas online, and we are distributing pads to women and girls who don't have access. And so when we started Sati, we actually started 1 million pads initiative. And at the time, it sounded like a big number because we had just started. But as of 2022, the end of 2022, we completed distributing 1 million pads. And as of last year, we've already distributed 2 million pads. So we've launched our new initiative to distribute 10 million pads. So we're trying to make good on that promise kind of, and that we set out to address lack of access in the beginning.
Amazing. And yeah, hopefully kind of, as you can see, Kristen and Sati pads are really kind of taking hold of kind of what has been spoken about in terms of really trying to just redefine what it looks like in terms of addressing period poverty. And I believe you do have some products behind you, so stick around at the end and I'm sure you can have a look at some of them. So we will now move over to Hashita. So she, or rather, as my question is, as a medical professional, what are some of the most common health risks or challenges faced by individuals experiencing period poverty? And how do these intersect with broader societal determinants of health?
It's right now. All right. Thank you so much, Beth. I'm really not sure what I can add to the discussion after all of my fellow panelists have spoken so much about them. But before we begin, I just have two questions that I want to ask the room. Why are we here? We're all here because we feel passionate about sexual and reproductive health rights, and we are passionate about strengthening social protection systems and women financing for women empowerment. But how are we here? We are here because somebody missed their periods. Every one of us are in this room because somebody missed their periods at one point of time. With that being said, there's about like 1.8 billion people who menstruate every month worldwide, meaning at each given point of day, there's 800 million women and girls menstruating. That's almost like 20% of the global population. And there's a very high chance that one person in this room is menstruating right now. So why is it that these discussions that are happening at this point of time, like as Manjula ma'am already mentioned, that these issues about period poverty have been here for a while now. It's been there since the dawn of time, because for the survival of the human race, somebody has to have missed their period at one point of time. But when we talk about this being a normal physiological phenomenon, and we talk about period poverty, we talk about how we're still unable to lead a dignified life. We're still unable to afford menstrual products. The accessibility to these products are still limited. And when it comes to equity, that's almost out of the question, because as has been mentioned, there are a lot of people who are unable to access it, from marginalized, vulnerable groups to underrepresented groups, that's like non-binary individuals, trans people, and so on. Regarding the question that you asked about what are the different health risks associated with it, it really depends on what product you're using and why you're using that particular product. I know that a lot of people think that my generation, the youth generation, we have access to a lot of products, but I myself did not know about the existence of the menstrual cup till like 2 years back, when a lot of my colleagues started talking about it. For me, when I got my first menarche and my grandmother gave me a pad because my mother wasn't in the room that time, she told me that this wasn't there during her time. So when you talk about all of those difficulties that actually happen about affording these products, it's not only about people in the global south, because you have a lower socioeconomic strata even in global north countries. And that is almost like 64% of women in the US who are saying that, hey, I'm not able to afford these products. And 32% of women who view this as a financial burden in the UK. That's not the global south, that is the global north. These are some of the richest countries that are out there. right now, when you talk about Global South, maybe we might think about people using rags or dry leaves or linings, wool, cotton, reusing these products. And that obviously can lead to a lot of reproductive tract infections. That means you'll have like issues with your vagina, which could lead to further infertility issues. And that again makes it a whole other story. But it can also lead to urinary tract infections, because when you're menstruating, the pH that is associated with your reproductive tract, it gets increased. But also sexual transmitted infections. And let me just give you a scenario. When these products are so expensive, especially when there's somebody who is migrating, somebody who has refugee status, or even somebody who is internally displaced because of climate change, to be able to afford these products, most of the times, these people undergo transactional sex. And that again leads to increase in these kind of products. But also, when you're having these menstrual disorders, which is not really spoken about, like menorrhagia, where you have increased bleed, and you're not able to afford these products, and you keep them on you for a longer time. I've seen a lot of women working in one of South India's largest hospitals, government hospitals, people who've come in with toxic shock. And when you try to find out why, they're like, hey, I've used this menstrual pad for more than 8 hours. I've kept a tampon in me for a day because I really can't afford to get another one. But even when we're talking about all of this, I'm privileged because I'm sitting in this room and I'm able to talk to you about this. What about the mental health burden and the stress and the shame that is associated with this? Like, I've had my own professors ask me, because I get terrible menstrual cramps and I get terrible PMS, that is premenstrual syndrome, where I have mood swings and everything. They're like, are you sure? Are you sure you're menstruating? Are you sure you're on your periods right now? I don't think as a healthcare professional, you need to be asking another healthcare professional, especially a young woman who's literally doubled over there in pain. How are we sensitizing our healthcare professionals? If somebody's coming in tomorrow and your doctor says something like this, wouldn't you be ashamed? You'd be wondering, hey, if everybody has periods, then I'm sure this pain is normal, but it's not. Having clots in your periods is not normal. Changing more than like 4 or 5 pads a day, that is not normal. Or having periods that lasts for longer than more than 5-6 days, that is not normal. Having a period more than once a month, that is not normal. Why is this not being spoken about? I think that's also issues that we need to be speaking about. And finally, when you talk about this in the broader aspect about the social determinants of health, I know that when we talk about this, we talk about how people are unable to access quality education because there's a lot of school absenteeism. We talk about how women are unable to be employed because of these issues. Sometimes they just said, hey, we don't have bathrooms for women, which has been changing over the years. So yay, one win for us. But also, how are we talking about this when it comes to food insecurity? Like, we have people in the climate crisis who are walking for miles together to actually access water to drink. What about water for them to be able to remove the period stain or to be able to dispose this? Or what about like social support systems and integration into society? A lot of people do not want to employ people because they say that, hey, you're going to miss your period one point of time, and then we need to worry about maternity leave, we need to worry about paternity leave, we need to worry about parental leave. We don't want that over here. Or health coverage, because a lot of health coverage does not include menstrual disorders. It does not include these issues that come with period poverty. And I think overall, I just want to end by stating just one thing, which is there is no equity or gender equality when half the population bears the financial and physical distress as a consequence of a reproductive cycle that is needed to ensure human survival. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I'm sure we can all agree with everything you said there so passionately. And I think that's kind of exactly the point of our event here, is to showcase that period poverty does go so much further than just access to products, and therefore menstrual justice kind of overlaps that. And I think that menstruation is such an incredible thing. It's this like superpower that we have that can give us an insight into our health. There is so much beauty to it. And because of this lack of education and therefore this kind of normalizing the stuff that isn't typical, it really kind of just kind of hinders us. So thank you very much for those statements. So I'm going to pass over to Marcela now to kind of make another point, and then we will open up the floor because I know that I'm sure there's lots of people who want to contribute.
Good, thank you. Next slide. So what we wanted to do is to open the conversation, and I just wanted to recall 3 things that we learned. Like I know it was a long speech trying to say everything that we did in Costa Rica and that went successfully, but and by hearing all of you, I think one of the most important things is change the conversation around menstruation. And I think this is pivotal to change the culture and social norms around menstruation, because this is the key to start having a serious and scientific-based conversation around menstruation, which in our country was very important. The role of men, the role of media, the role of youth voices. And for here, I go to my second point, which is inclusion and voice. We realized we were just part of a movement, and we needed to hear, as you can see, the little girls, our little Valentias there. We took from 8 to 12-year-old girls to our parliament to talk with parliament members about menstruation and climate crisis and other things. But it is very important not only to have their voice, but just to have the interaction with decision makers, because this changed the narrative and changed the compromise of people who finally make the decisions that we need to be made. And of course, change the law. And with change the law, we mean find the structural changes that we have to in her 90s. She went to one of our very big shopping malls in Costa Rica that we were recollecting signatures, and she asked to go and give us her sign, because she lived menstrual poverty when she was a little girl. And then you have the girls, the 8-year-old girls, and you have the teenagers talking about menstruation. So it's very important that this is a conversation that goes through ages, and we have to include everybody in if we want to have a very successful movement.
Wonderful. So yeah, I'd love to open up the floor if anyone has any questions for our panelists. We'll do some kind of networking outside as well. So we've got about 10 minutes, I think, for questions. So yeah, if anyone does want to request the floor, do say. Otherwise, we'll kind of move on to questions. Yeah. If you can come to a mic and you'll just click that bit just so it can be picked up on the recording. So do you want to go first and then yourself?
My question's for Marcela. I really wonder, in a country like Costa Rica, how did you get any pushback, especially when going to male parliament members and asking for support? I'm trying to even imagine a country like the United States having something so flamboyantly, out there. And I can't even imagine that. So I really would love to hear the process. What did it take for you to get to the point to have
and our Congress and in the country in general. But something that happened that was really important, it was one of the pictures that was at the beginning. We had one first interview with a journalist, a very famous anchor journalist in Costa Rica. And it was in the noon's flash news. and he kind of was, I think, was one of our most important ambassadors, and he kind of pushed the conversation that every person should support the movement. And I think this is why I talk a lot about how men are very important in this conversation, because after that interview, we had different people were really willing to know more about this. We were in the streets of San Jose, and here is my colleague Amanda, and she can say that men were approaching us and saying, we want to know more. We didn't know this was a problem. But in the other side, we had some men saying, I have 3 girls and my wife, and they are all in their periods, and we are so happy because this is going to help for our family economy. So when we put the terms in money, it was easier for us to push the conversation. With the pushback that we had from the more conservative wings, we were able to talk to the more conservative wings in our parliament. And I'm not saying it was an easy conversation, but I would say that the campaign and this different tone for the conversation. And we had a lot of male also friends that parliament members too, that they just decided to go and say, we are here with you. So we always we believe that it is very important to understand who are your key actors, who are your key stakeholders, for them to help others that maybe they are not so progressive, or maybe they are afraid, because we also discovered that some men were afraid to ask. Some men were ashamed because, as Manjula said, in some languages that means dirty, or it means I cannot talk about this. So for us was very important to find the ones who would understand from the beginning and make them part of the movement. And also, when what we did was to listen a lot. We never combat anything. We never made them feel that they were ignorant or they had like bad intentions. We just very carefully listen everything and create bridges for understanding. And I think that is very important when we are trying to accomplish very difficult changes in our law. And it was funny that what we accomplished with more conservative people, because at the beginning they were like, oh, we know that you think that we are against you. They were fighting, and I remember this, and it was very funny. And I talked to one of the parliament members, and I said, like, I understand your point of view. Anything that is around it, we can work on it. But the most important thing was to pass the bill. And once we reached to that point of understanding that we needed to be together, because the most important thing that girls and women have access to a dignified menstruation was in the table, we were able to understand what was the best strategy to work with those who were not, like, fully backing everything. But that was kind of the experience. Thank you so much.
Good evening. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot especially from Costa Rica. I come from South Africa. And as much as people say, oh, our constitution, socially, we're very conservative, no lies. But I was really interested in this is something we struggle with as much as you have the baskets. Our baskets don't from what I remember, they don't offer sanitary pads or menstrual care. But I see that your programs have already gone so far with your policy. I wanted to know then, in terms of like your prison systems and the women in prisons, how do you, to be honest, how did you, yes, people are in prison, but they still have rights afforded to them. So how did you get around to saying to people, yes, these people are in prison, but it doesn't mean, especially in this aspect, that they have to live in shame or, well, unethically?
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for that question. In fact, when we started the campaign, the first population that we had in mind was women in jail, because they get one package of pads per month, which is not enough for anything. And when they get it, it's not by law. So with this, it was very clear that this was a very important population, although it's not a lot of people that we have, not a lot of women that we have in jail. However, one of the things that we did as a strategy for the campaign, and this was strategically purely, was to talk about girls and women, girls, students and women. And this was kind of the strategy, because we knew we will get more pushback if we will talk about immigrants and women in jail. We didn't get it though, but in some parts and in some media, in social media, some people were, of course, because, you know, somebody's always has something to say. But strategically, what we focused the campaign on for narrative purposes was to make conscious about students, girls missing classes, women not going to work. And of course, we will say things about immigrants, refugees, and women in jail. So for us, that was kind of the strategy. So to put the conversation where we knew that we will not get more pushback than the one that we would have. But it was kind of the idea to get there. Although the police corps make a small collection of products, and they by their own initiative take those products to women in jail. So we know that there are other campaigns that are happening around this. So what we're trying to do is to do advocacy and to say in many places as possible about these key populations, so people can take actions from themselves. Because one of the most important things for us is like, this is not our movement. This we want everybody to join the movement. Either they are coordinating with us or not. So this is why we always try to say like the most strategic populations that we believe need support from the campaign or any other campaign.
Thank you. I don't think we've got time for another question, so we will take questions outside. I just wondered if, Kristen, you wanted to add at all, as someone who provides products, but on that kind of question that was asked in terms of access and kind of what work you're trying to do within trying to provide access.
Yeah, so I think one other thing that I didn't get to mention, so we do also provide menstrual cups and biodegradable sanitary pads. And I think one of the things we've seen a lot of conversations around, you know, providing access to a lot of different products. So the question of choice came up as well. And I think even, you know, kind of having that choice is important. And in particular,